Hello friends, and welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are going to talk about the forgotten heroes of the garden. Yes, we're going to talk about those fantastic annuals, perennials, and shrubs that often get overlooked. They are fantastic plants. You would love to have them in your garden, but for whatever reason, sometimes they don't get all the love and attention from us, and they can be forgotten. So I am here to remind you of how fabulous these plants are. We are going to talk about annuals, perennials, and shrubs. I have 5 in each category. Just to recap, of course, annuals are those fantastic plants that will last for one growing season. Typically, once your frost and freeze come, they are gone. Perennials are those plants that live for 2 or more years in your garden. We love them because they just keep coming back bigger and better every year. And then, of course, shrubs. Shrubs can go from anywhere from a nice petite little small hydrangea all the way up to basically a tree size large shrub. Again, they too get bigger and better with every year that they are in your garden. Now, all of these are available at gardeningwithcreekside.com. Y'all, if you want to order stuff, whether it's these plants or something else, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and get those orders placed. Of course, we're taking pre-orders. I'm not going to send them to you until the time is appropriate for your growing zone, but we're getting it to that point, especially with the annuals, is that things are starting to become limited. So if you're excited to shop, let's go ahead and do that. All orders over $175 ship for free, and we have got some amazing deals coming up. So if you're not signed up for the emails, I will put a link in the video description. Do that because we don't always announce those here on the videos. So make sure you take advantage of that because there are some great sales and specials coming up. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. We're going to do the annuals first. First on the list is the unplugged pink salvia. Y'all, I adore this salvia because it is an absolute workhorse in that sunny garden. And the great thing too about the unplugged pink, besides its gorgeous pink color, is that it is a more petite size. So the unplugged series is going to be a little bit more smaller, a little bit more compact than maybe your rockin' series of salvias. They have this same flower power. They are just prolific bloomers that your pollinators absolutely adore. So whether you're looking to attract your bees, your butterflies, your hummingbirds, then these are going to be the ones for you. That unplugged pink, of course, like I said, nice, tight, compact, beautiful pink flowers on it. And the great thing about the annual unplugged pink salvia is that you don't really have to deadhead it, and it does complete continuous blooms throughout the entire summer. It drinks up the sun. It drinks up the heat and the humidity. So even for me in my North Carolina Zone 8A garden, it can handle that heat and humidity like an absolute champion. Of course, your salvias tend to be more critter resistant. So if you deal with bunny problems or deer problems, your salvias tend to handle that a little bit better. So whether you want to put it in a container or you want to put it in the landscape, it is going to be a great option for you. One thing that I do is better for that unplugged pink, maybe than say like a rockin' deep fuchsia, or is that it is more petite, so it does really well in containers. It's going to behave more nicely with other plants. It's not going to overtake the plants like maybe some of those rockins would. So if you're looking for a nice tight compact salvia that gives you the same bloom power and all the attraction of the bigger salvias, then go with that unplugged pink for sure. Second on the list, y'all, this is an absolute classic, and you're probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but this plant is an oldie but a goodie. What am I talking about? Vermillionaire. Vermillionaire, y'all, is the absolute, in my opinion, #1 plant to attract hummingbirds to your gardens. Yes, those little orange tubular blooms are small. They don't care. Hummingbirds are small. They have small beaks. They like nice little tight spaces. And I think that they really enjoy the vermillionaire is because other pollinators maybe are not going to it as much. Yes, bees are attracted to vermillionaire, absolutely. but it's not as big and as showy. And so those hummingbirds kind of have an exclusive right to that vermillionaire. Vermillionaire has a really fun habit to it. It is a little bit more freeform. Think of like fireworks, right? So it's kind of up and sprays. It's a very upright habit. It does great in containers. in the landscape. You could put it in a hanging basket as your thriller. Does fantastic. We literally have customers that come to the nursery and they're like, I want that hummingbird plant. What is that hummingbird plant? And we know exactly what they're talking about with Vermillionaire. So please get at least one Vermillionaire. If you are looking to support those hummingbirds in your garden, they will go to Vermillionaire before they will go to your feeders. I promise. This is an amazing plant. In fact, when we were just potting up those 25,000 annuals that came from Proven Winners, there was one little Vermillionaire that had a little tiniest little bud on it. And I'm telling you, the entire staff, we were all so excited. We were like, look, Vermillionaire has a bloom on it, because we were so excited to see this plant. Again, absolute classic, but you've got to have this beautiful bright orange tubular flower in your garden for your hummingbirds. Hang around with me for like any length of time and you're going to know that I am a huge fan of Coleus. Coleus is a great annual, but we're going to talk specifically about chocolate drop Coleus. So if you're familiar with Proven Winners Coleus, the color blades, they tend to be really large. They're big, they're beautiful, they're showy. But sometimes we need something a little different. Sometimes we need something that has maybe a little bit smaller leaf on it. And could it trail? Oh, well, that would just be fantastic. Well, that is what chocolate drop Coleus does. Hence its name, drop. So these are going to be much more petite leaves on it. It's going to have a nice, deep, rich, it's purple near black with that chartreuse edge on it. And it is a trailing Coleus. Before I knew that trailing Coleuses existed, I was like, really? Like a Coleus is going to trail? Well, yes, they do. They do get a little height to them, and then they begin to trail over. Y'all, this is an amazing foliage plant. You don't have to have flowers to have a beautiful, stunning garden or make an annual a beautiful, stunning annual. As with all the color blaze Coleuses, chocolate drop is going to perform really well in both sun and shade conditions. So it really does not matter what your sun conditions are in your garden. You could have full sun in the morning and complete shade in the afternoon. Vice versa. You could have all day shade, all day sun. You name it in between, chocolate drop is going to handle it like a champion. Not only will it do really, really well in containers and hanging baskets and give you that fun interest of that trailing habit, I have used it many times in the landscape as a ground cover. Yes, think about a trailing Coleus, beautiful foliage, and has that great vigor that will just absolutely cover any kind of area that you're talking about. And it will cover the area without rooting. So it's not in the least bit invasive. So I really want you to check out Chocolate Drop Coleus, especially if you're looking at containers, hanging baskets, or you want a great, quick, fast-growing annual ground cover to fill in spaces between shrubs and perennials while you're waiting for them to flush out and get nice and big. Check out the Color Blaze Chocolate Drop Coleus. Next. Okay, y'all, I know I say I'm a huge fan of all these because I really am, and I use them all the time in my gardens. Sun Patience, compact white. Y'all, we used this in the garden back here on the back patio, I believe it was 2 years ago. It absolutely knocked my socks off. Not only did we use it back here in the back patio, we used it on the side of the house. I was floored with how great this plant does. Huge fan of Sun Patience. And in fact, I was just telling Jerry last night, the new strip along the driveway, I want to put Sun Patience back there, and because of the annual that I'm using in front of it, the compact white would do absolutely wonderful behind it. If you are looking for a no fuss, low maintenance, not a diva, but an extremely high performer, then that compact white Sun Patient is going to be a great option for you. I know historically we think of Impatiens as being for that shade garden, hence the name Sun Patient. Even though we are a Zone 8A in North Carolina, and I'm telling you what, there is no hotter spot in our property than this back patio, completely surrounded by stone. It gets hot, intense sun. We have the brick porch behind it. I mean, absolutely bakes. They thrived. They went the entire season and were extremely happy. Fun little side note also, that same year when I planted them on the side of the house, I was digging my holes because of course these are in these nice grande size cups. I was digging my hole and by the grace of the Lord, I was digging a hole and I was digging it right beside a yellow jacket's nest. So yellow jackets are a horribly aggressive, mean, nasty insect that will sting you, but they put their nest in the ground. I didn't see it. I was digging the hole and all of a sudden I started seeing the yellow jackets. I dropped the container. So the plant was still in the container and it kind of went down in the hole a little bit. Y'all, it stayed there all season. I never planted it. It completely rooted through the pot and was as happy could be. So you talk about a tough plant that can take neglect, that Sun Patience Compact White is one for you. And because it's a white flower, it will go with anything. So it doesn't matter what your color palette is, that Sun Patience Compact White, I'm telling you, try it this year. You will absolutely love it. They get some height to them, so they pair really well with other plants. So they can go, depending on your flower bed, in the middle or the back of your flower bed. Lovely, beautiful green foliage, pure white flowers. What else is there to love? I don't know. I love my Sun Patience Compact White. The last annual for today that is the unsung, forgotten hero of the garden is the Surefire Cherry Cordial Begonia. I say begonias all the time at the nursery when people are looking, for an easy plant. They kind of look at me and I'm like, trust me, these are not your grandmama's begonias. The Cherry Cordial is going to be one of the newest ones in that Surefire line, and it is a great plant, y'all. If you're talking about you want some interest both on the foliage and the flower, then this is going to be it for you. Gets that name because it looks just like a cherry cordial, mere black, deep, dark foliage on it with red flowers. Fun fact about the Surefire begonias, they too can do full sun to full shade and anything in between. They're amazing because they too are so drought tolerant. They don't have a whole lot of water needs. You don't need to constantly fertilize them. You don't have to deadhead them. You just plant them and basically forget them. They do great in containers and they do really well in the landscape, especially if you can put them kind of in a mass planting. And when I say mass, that could be 3 or more plants, just depends on your size. But they're going to get some height to them, that beautiful, glossy, near black foliage with those bright red flowers. It is beautiful. And like other wax begonias, it is going to be critter resistant. So like I said, I have rabbit issues back here in this little area where I am. They are not going to touch those wax begonias. They didn't last year. It is fabulous. So if you have critter problems, check out Surefire Cherry Cordial. I know you're not going to be disappointed with this beautiful annual. Now, moving into perennials. So perennials, of course, like I said, definition is that they will live for 2 or more years in your garden. Sometimes you will have perennials that completely die back in the wintertime, and then other perennials they will have a lot of dieback on their foliage, but you will see a nice little mound within your garden. So you'll still see where it is. So these are the 5 forgotten heroes in the perennial category. A new series that our friends at Proven Winners came out with is a Coreopsis, and this is called the Designer Thread series. Creamy Calico is a beautiful, absolutely stunning Coreopsis. Now, it's called Designer Threads because this is a thread leaf type of Coreopsis. So it has a very fine foliage on it, very small serrated foliage, but the plant is absolutely covered in these beautiful creamy yellow flowers that have like a maroon eye. And the fun thing too about this series, and especially this Creamy Calico, is that the colors don't bleed. So you're not going to have this veining. You're going to have a clear eye and you're going to have a clear outside. The Creamy Calico does go really well with other color palettes. It is not quite as bright and as bold as some of the other colors in the Designer Threads series. So that's going to be very helpful for you when you're trying to design your garden. This is going to be hardy in zones 5 to 9. Very adaptable. Of course, Coreopsis loves the sun. I literally have it on the hottest part. It's just right off the patio. It is right there. They have very low water needs. They are drought tolerant. Mine is not on irrigation. I don't water it at all. If it gets any water, it is because of rain or if we're washing off the patio and water just happens to go down there. So very low maintenance. It has exceptional mildew resistance. With my heat and humidity, powdery mildew can be a problem in the garden, especially when we're talking about like July and August, just because our nights stay incredibly hot and humid. The Creamy Calico has exceptional mildew resistance to that, so we love that. Long blooming. I mean, I'm talking about weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. It's not, you know, a 3 or 4 weeks and then it's done. It just continues to go. If you want to shear it back, you could absolutely do that. You don't have to. I didn't do it to mine last year and it just kept blooming its little head off. It is a huge pollinator attractor, of course. And then what do we love? It is deer resistant. I know that so many of you sweet folks deal with deer in your garden and chewing on your plants. So Creamy Calico is going to be a deer resistant, now not deer proof. Nothing is deer proof, but it is a deer resistant, beautiful, continuous blooming flower. Y'all are going to love this. And with its height being in that medium, I would say it's like 12 to 18 inches tall. It just depends on your garden. You could have it on the front. I kind of tend to have mine on the front. I have it also paired next to my phenomenal lavender, so that sweet purple with that yellow and maroon is stunning. Or you could just put it in the middle. It just depends on how your garden layout is designed. So you're going to love this Creamy Calico, and another plus to it is native. It is native to North America. So I know native is the buzzword. So this is a great native plant for you. Now, next, here we go. This one was new a couple of years ago, and I love this Nepeta. Nepeta catmint, right? So this is chartreuse on the loose. When our friend Kata first brought me this plant and told me about this plant, I fell in love with it because I love anything that is a chartreuse color, because in the South, the chartreuse can be a hard color for our plants to have because of the heat and the humidity. Well, chartreuse on the loose Nepeta is going to fulfill all of that. We love chartreuse on the loose because it has that color, but then it has these beautiful bright blue / purple flowers that bloom continuously. It is a nice low mounded habit to it, so it is perfect for the front of your border, and you don't have to chop this Nepeta back to encourage those new blooms. So it's going to bloom on its own without you having to cut it back at all. Your chartreuse on the loose is hardy in zones 3 to 8. Even me in an 8A, I have it in full all-day sun, and it's doing really, really well. It is a huge pollinator attractor, like I said, especially with your honeybees. The honeybees in the early spring, early summer love those rich purple blue flowers, massively attracted to that, and will just be absolutely covering the plant. So chartreuse on the loose, deer resistant, rabbit resistant, like all the things. You give it a little rub, a little gentle little zhuzh, and it has this delicious fragrance to it. I know people will ask, you know, are cats attracted to catmint? Not really. We don't have a cat, but I've talked with other viewers and other customers who have cats, and they don't bother it. So you don't have to worry about if you have a cat that it's going to go and destroy your plant. You should be okay. So chartreuse on the loose, you're going to love this plant. New this year is a Stokes aster. So I know that Stokes asters are a fantastic native plant, especially they're native to North America, native here in the Southeast. I love a good native plant in the South because that means it is extremely low maintenance. It's going to handle my heat, my humidity, the crazy weather that we have. This Totally Stokes Riptide is a beautiful late, like midsummer to early fall bloomer in your garden. So when the rest of the garden is starting to look a little sad and tired, here comes Riptide. And so many times I think Stokes asters, they just get kind of poo-pooed on, you know, oh, well, that's not a fancy plant. That's not a bougie plant. No, this a great classic plant that is going to attract the pollinators, give you that late season color, hardy in zones 5 to 9. So extremely adaptable. So whether you're up in Michigan or you're way down south, Riptide is going to be a great option for you. This plant is really a beautiful plant in its structure. It has a lot of branching to it, and it's going to be absolutely covered in nice big flowers. And so you're going to love this plant. It is, like I said, deer and rabbit resistant. I mean, if it's a native plant, it's got to be critter resistant, right? Because otherwise, how could it survive the time here in the South and native in North America? So we love all of those factors. And of course, like I said, your pollinators love it too, because it is blooming in the end of the season when they're really looking for food. So look for, add that riptide to your garden. It's going to give you a little bit of height. It's going to be like that creamy calico. That would be a beautiful pairing. By the way, around that same size, 12 to 18 inches tall, so not too big, not too little, very adaptable for different parts of your garden. And then we have bobblehead allium. Alliums, I think, sometimes get a bad rap because what are they? Well, they're onions, right? Ornamental onions. Bobblehead is a new introduction. It is going to be hardy in zones 4 to 8. Again, 8A does great for me. A lot of people are going to be familiar with Serendipity. Serendipity is a classic one from Proven Winners. Bobblehead is the newer introduction. You absolutely can have both of them. So if you deal with deer and rabbits in your garden eating your plants, they're probably going to stay away from the alliums, because as soon as you crush those leaves, it's an onion. And most critters do not like to eat onions. I know Brenna, she will not eat an onion. She'll eat a strawberry, but she's not going to eat an onion. So the deer and the rabbit are going to be the same way. Why would you want to have, you say, well, Jenny, I already have Serendipity, or I have Millennium, or I have this kind of allium. Why do I want to have another allium? Well, because one, if they do well in your garden, lean into that, embrace that, go for it. Bobblehead is going to be a great addition to your garden because one, it blooms earlier. So it's going to bloom before your Serendipity does. It's also going to be a bigger, more robust plant. So you're going to have a size difference between this and Serendipity. You're going to have a color difference. Serendipity is that nice, deep, classic allium, rich purple color. Your bobblehead is going to be a nice light color. So it's going to have a color difference. If they were blooming at the same time, you would not think that one is one, like if they're both the same plant, right? Because you're going to see a very clear color difference in the color of your flowers. And then two, when it's not in bloom, bobblehead is really fun because each individual leaf has a little bit of a twist to it. So you've got a structure difference in just the foliage alone. So bobblehead, I am super excited to add it to my garden because, like I said, I'm dealing with some rabbits between back here where the fountain is and up near the chicken coop. For whatever reason, the rabbits have discovered my garden and they are loving life on certain plants. So I plan on adding quite a few of these alliums to the garden so that I can have beautiful flowers, support my pollinators, and not the rabbit population. The last perennial that is the forgotten hero of the garden is a Brunnera, Queen of Hearts. This is an absolutely stunning shade/woodland garden perennial. To know Brunnera is to love Brunnera, especially with Queen of Hearts. You're going to have massive leaves on this. Typically, historically, you think of Brunnera for your foliage interest, but it does do beautiful true blue flowers in the early spring. You get these beautiful tall scapes, flower stalks with these really nice delicate bell-shaped flowers on it in a true blue hue. Your pollinators are going to love it because those honeybees do love that blue. This is going to pair really well with those other woodland plants. So your hellebores, your hostas, your ferns, your pulmonaria, whatever, kind of plants that you have in your shade garden, this is going to be a great one. Now, the Queen of Hearts is hardy in zones 3 to 9. So my cold weather people, you will absolutely love this plant all the way down to the heat. Depending on what zone you're in will depend on how much sun it can get. So if you're in a zone, I would say like 3 through 5, 3 through 6, it can handle a ton more sun. If you're in zones 7 to 9, definitely going to need a filtered sun or maybe a little bit of morning, but late afternoon shade. It cannot handle the hot sun here in the south. So the tag might be a little confusing. Just know the hotter you are, the more shade it needs. Now, Queen of Hearts will do really well if it has consistent moisture. So if you have a garden that stays more damp, not wet, but if it stays more consistently moist, maybe that's because of irrigation, maybe that's because of water, runoff, whatever the case may be, that your Queen of Hearts is going to do really well there. Nice, big, huge presence. And as with every other perennial, every year she gets bigger and bigger and bigger. An absolutely stunning plant. Again, deer, rabbit resistant, because if you've ever touched Brunnera, it has a very hairy texture to it. So again, not deer, rabbit proof, but highly resistant because of that texture to it. They don't like that on their lips. So they prefer the more silky plants, not the texture of the Queen of Hearts. All right, now let's go into shrubs. Here we go into shrubs. Now, again, shrubs. This is going to be those woody plants. Maybe they're deciduous, maybe they're evergreen. With your shrubs, this is going to be like your perennials, dependent on your zone. So knowing your growing zone is very important. If you don't know it, you can go to head over to gardenwithcreekside.com, type in your zip code, and we will tell you what your growing zone is. Keep in mind, with your shrubs, we say the first year they sleep. Basically, keep the plant alive. That's all you need to do, right? The second year, they creep. You're going to see a little bit of growth on it, right? So it's got some growth, not maximum. And then the third year, they leap. So the year 3 and beyond is when they leap. Their roots are really well established. They're happy, they're thriving, and they are growing to their maximum potential. And you're going to see all of those fantastic attributes of that plant in your garden. So here we go. First up, we have a rose. We have the Oh So Easy Ice Bay Rose. If you want that classic, beautiful white rose, but in a more petite format with high disease resistant, then the Oh So Easy Ice Bay is going to be a great option for you. It's more of that landscape shrub, so it is only going to be like a 3x3. Not crazy tall, not a climber, a nice shrub rose. The Oh So Easy Ice Bay is going to look exceptionally well in a mass planting. Again, mass planting could be 3 or more because you're going to have these pure white flowers with that kind of that yellow throat to it on that nice classic glossy green rose foliage. It is absolutely gorgeous. It has high disease resistance. So if you're concerned about maybe the rose rosette disease or anything like that, this is going to have high disease resistance on it. Of course, because it is a rose, it tends to be more critter resistant. Now, I know you're going to be people out there that say, oh my gosh, the deer chomp down my roses all the time. Remember, deer resistant is not deer proof, but it does help that it has those little thorns. It is very heat tolerant, so it does really well in the growing zones because, again, this is one that's hardy in zones 3 to 9. Praise the Lord for these plants that are so versatile, right? So even here in the South, it will do really well because it has that great heat tolerance to it. It is going to be a continuous bloomer. So it's just going to keep on putting out. It's going to give you those beautiful pure white flowers throughout the entire growing season. And like all roses, it is a big pollinator attractor. So we love that. Next, moving on to a hydrangea, a serrata hydrangea, a lace cap hydrangea. This is Tough Stuff Aha. The Tough Stuff series is an amazing group of line of those serrata hydrangeas. Aha, I think often gets overlooked. I don't know why. Y'all, she is the best little hydrangea. It is going to be hardy in zones 4 to 9. It does great here in the South. Sometimes our hydrangeas struggle with our heat and humidity. Not Tough Stuff Aha. Full to part sun. Again, if you're in zones 4, absolutely. Throw that baby in the full sun all day and she'll do great. If you're in zones 7 to 9, you're going to need more shade. Morning sun, filtered sun, probably a break in the afternoon, or supplement it with some water. So it's going to depend on your growing zone. It is a lace cap, right? This is going to be pH dependent. So depending on your soil's pH level, you could get blues, you could get pinks, you could get purples. It really is going to depend on the plant. And your soil rather, and massive blooms. So dinner plate size blooms that are a re-bloomer. So again, if you have hydrangeas and especially like the serratas, I know Mimi's garden, she struggled trying to find a hydrangea that would work in her garden because it was weird because of the sun conditions. The Tough Stuff series was fantastic. Hers are a little bit bigger. So if you're looking for something a little bit smaller, the Aha is going to be an absolutely great one. And like I said, it performs really well here in the South with our heat and humidity. That 3x3 size, going to absolutely love it. Now, going a little bit more for the southern people, slightly, we have Mucho Gusto Abelia. Y'all, if you're not growing abelias and you're in a growing zone of a 6 to 9, you are missing out. I love Mucho Gusto. This is a beautiful variegated abelia. Abelias are going to be, depending on where you are, the warmer you are, it's going to be definitely an evergreen. The cooler you are, it's going to be a semi-evergreen. But this has the prettiest foliage on it with really sweet white flowers that your pollinators are going to love. And this is those classic plant, right? So with this color palette, it will go with anything. And I really think that abelias get overlooked. You can absolutely use this as a foundation planting. If you can look at your garden right now, here we are in February, and you're lacking color and structure and you just have sticks everywhere, get a Mucho Gusto, get a couple of Mucho Gustos, put those in there. You're going to have that beautiful color. I've got them up at the chicken coop. I have them in the signature garden. They are doing really well. Thrives in southern climates. You cannot get worse conditions than what I have at the chicken coop. Horrible thick red clay soil. It's not on irrigation, and it can get a lot of sun up there. The Mucho Gustos are loving life and doing really well. This time of year, just give them a little shape, get those hedge trimmers out, whack them back, and they will be fine. You're going to love the Mucho Gusto abelia. This one surprises me. I do not understand why more people don't have this plant in your garden. I don't understand why nurseries don't offer it more. It's hard for us to even find. What am I talking about? The Winecraft Gold Smoke Bush. This is one of those plants that I thought that we couldn't grow, that we were going to be too hot for. Honey. It absolutely loves our climate. It is hardy in zones 5 to 8, so you can see why I was a little hesitant. Again, chartreuse color in zone 8A. I was like, oh, we may be too hot. No. It is fabulous, and it is a fast grower. It can get up to like 4 to 6 feet tall. Mine is absolutely 6 feet tall in less than 3 years. Planted it as a small 1 gallon, and it absolutely took off. We love the Winecraft Gold because it has that beautiful chartreuse color. It is stunning. Pair it with something that is a great color contrast. I have it paired with the Summerific Holy Grail Hibiscus, which is a really near black foliage with bright red flowers. They're beautiful. Of course, it's called a smoke bush because after it blooms, the heads will get this really light, airy look. So it looks like the plant is kind of covered in a haze of smoke. Y'all, get this plant. Even if you get it as a quart, which is what we sell it as, you're going to have massive growth really fast on it, and it's going to get beautiful growth and bring a lot of interest to your garden. Once again, if you're in zone 5, 6, maybe 7A, full, hot, all day sun, put it in there and it's going to love it. Zone 8, 7, and 8, mine is in full sun, but it is also the first thing to get the shade in the afternoon. So starting around like 3 o'clock and on in the heat of the summer, it is in the shade. So just kind of keep that in mind with your Winecraft Gold. And it too is deer resistant. So yay for that. It is deciduous, so just kind of keep that in mind. Just giving you all the information here. Next, we have a spirea. Relatively new in the market is Double Play Dolly. And Dolly is such an impressive plant. Spireas, again, can get overlooked. Do not overlook these plants, y'all. If you are looking for a plant that gives you beautiful foliage, Dolly has got that nice chartreuse color again that also flowers and attracts your pollinators. Dolly has got nice, rich purple flowers. Very, very hardy, great performer, can handle neglect, can handle kind of everything you throw at it and does really well. We love spireas. Dolly's going to be the same in the fact that they bloom on new growth. I just did a video where I was talking about I was pruning my double play doozies, and I had multiple people say that this winter their deer and or rabbits pruned the plants for them, and they do it every winter, but they come back in the spring thick and tight and beautiful and covered in flowers. So if you have a spirea, if you have Dolly, and then you maybe have those critters that when they're super, super hungry, they chew on those stems in the wintertime, don't fret, sweetheart. They're still going to bloom and they're still going to come back and they're absolutely going to be gorgeous. It is like I said, a pollinator attractor, drought tolerant, very easy. Another little fun side note, Double Play Dolly was bred by one of our most beloved breeders, one of my favorite plants of all time is the Little Lime Punch. That is from Megan Matai of Spring Meadow Nursery. And this is one of Megan's introductions that she came up with. So Double Play Dolly, I'm telling you, anything that Megan touches, it turns to gold. That's right, Chartreuse Gold of Double Play Dolly. So add this spirea to your garden. Again, fast grower, you're going to love it for sure. All right, my friends, so that wraps us up with the 5 forgotten heroes of the gardens for your annuals, your perennials, and your shrubs. There is just an abundance of plants out there, right, that are available for us. So it doesn't matter what your growing zone is. It doesn't matter what your sun conditions are or what maybe your garden has to offer you in way of challenges. There are plants that will fit that need for you. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of investigation to do. So hopefully this is giving you some ideas, whether you have shade, whether you have sun, whether you have rabbits, whether it's moist, whether it's damp, dry, clay, humidity, cold. Hopefully these forgotten heroes will give you some ideas and that you can add some of them to your garden. That's why we do these videos, so that we can remind you of some of these fantastic plants that are out there that don't get a lot of the spotlight, and but they are still absolutely wonderful performers in your garden. As always, we hope you found this fun, informative, and inspirational. Y'all have an amazing day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.